My name is Nancy Hutchinson, and I'm one of the co-founders of SEP. This craziness all began mostly because of Barb Schultz, presidential award-winning teacher and just phenomenal person with kids, and a woman who just nobody says no to. Even if you say no, it's still going to happen.
So Bruce Alberts, who was at that time president of the National Academies, came out to do an interview on some teachers when they were looking for doing science standards, that first book in 1983. My student teacher, Caroline Keel, had been working on a master's and was in Bruce Alberts' lab.
So I met Barb through a man named Bruce Alberts. He was a good friend of my research mentor, Hal Weintraub, at the Fred Hutch. And they were all actually really interested in education and biology teaching and learning. Bruce wanted to meet Barb and talk with her. I said, I'll give you a ride out to her school if I can talk to you in the meantime, because he had some people in his department working on science education. I thought, well, okay, I can learn a lot on that.
He brought Nancy and he wouldn't let her stay in the car. He brought her in. That's how I met her.
And once he introduced me to Barb, we started talking, and he had questions for her about science kit programs that she was doing. She was explaining how things like they wanted to do something with things with frog eggs. They needed these salt solutions. Oh, wait a minute. In the lab I work in, those kind of salt solutions are trivial to get.
And she said, hey, if you ever need anything, just let me know.
And I gave her my phone number and, thought she was a really awesome teacher and was excited I got to talk with Bruce, which was my original goal.
I called her the next day and said, do you have any frog eggs?
It made no sense that teachers had no access to many basic things. That was kind of the nugget or the kernel that really got it going.
I have a student that really would like to do an internship. So I call in the summer. So I call Nancy and say, hey, can my student come down and spend some time in your lab? And she said, sure. And I figured, I don't know what she's doing, but I got to go see. So I go down there and she is doing stuff with chicken chromosomes, lamprey chromosomes. And I said, Susie, move over. I want to see what you're doing. Next thing I know, I said, I have to do this too.
Barb was so curious after she had found an internship for a student at Fred Hutch. She wanted to join in too and be a part of what was going on, just insatiably curious. I think from that initial, teachers want to learn too, SEP was kind of born out of that spirit.
I really wanted to know what was going on in a research lab, so I think Nancy couldn't get rid of me for a while. And we got to talking and said, it was great giving this one student an experience with biotech. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could do the same thing for a group of teachers instead of a group of kids? Most teachers never get into a research lab. They don't know anything about what's going on in research. They're not given a research experience in their training. And so bringing them into the lab for a short period of time would really be an eye-opener for a lot of teachers.
So once Barb and I got started talking, we pulled in a couple of the other teachers that we had met who were really visionary on some of these kind of things. Peggy Skinner was one, Ellie Lang another.
I'm Peggy O'Neill Skinner, a longtime science educator here in Seattle. I'm retired now. I was in the classroom at Bush School for 40 years and did my first year of teaching in the Shoreline School District, 7th grade science, and my next door neighbor was Barb Schultz, who was my mentor teacher for that beginning year.
We started talking about what can we do? How can we make something that would really work, that teachers would have this chance to meet scientists and work together with them, to get into a laboratory. Because most teachers have never had anything except to kind of repeat this after me sort of thing that you do in a high school or college lab. You just try to repeat the results that you already expected. They'd never had that chance to ask their own research question. Most didn't know a scientist, had never spent time at a research lab, didn't have equipment in their classrooms. So we cooked up this idea to bring in 10 teachers from kind of around the Seattle area. During the summer, I think we set it up for 5 days. We actually got scientists who volunteered to host a teacher in their lab and work with them for 5 days. And that was kind of the seat of our pants. Let's just do this and see what'll happen.
Well, I think there were about 10 of us, and we just really enjoyed the experience of being here.
We had coffee with the teachers the first morning, and then sent them off to the research labs. And man, when they came back at the end of the day, there was all this energy. And then there were two kind of threads also. One, oh my God, I felt so stupid.
We got the teachers there. We assigned them all research lab. Off they went, and they came back the end of the day in tears. Because the expectation on the researchers' part was, well, they knew how to pipette, and they know what this stuff is. Well, they'd never seen a pipette before, so they didn't know what they were doing.
And the other was, it is so incredible to be in a lab and see how people don't actually know the answer, and they'll look at their gel results and say, I don't know, let me ask somebody else. And, they'd talk it over. It wasn't like black and white, kind of how we thought, is this right? Well, you can't look it up in the back of the book. You have to look at it and decide what you think of it. And so all of this, they were just all so immersed in all this and excited and couldn't wait for the next day, but also wanted to not feel quite so, not up to what's going on in the labs.
We decided that we needed to talk with the researchers as well, because the teachers knew a lot. They're looking at the whole forest. The researchers are looking at the root hairs on the trees, and they don't know what the forest is all about.
That first year in the program was pretty extraordinary, actually. And I was assigned to a paramecium lab at the Hutch. I was pretty excited about that because I had actually taught a paramecium lab to my 9th graders, which was part of the BSES curriculum. So this was going to give me a chance to see something on a more authentic level. I was assigned to a graduate student, and we were working with obviously microscopes and paramecium and working on an ion channel experiment. And it was complicated, and I love the science, but it was getting difficult for me. And the graduate student kept pushing me to have the understanding of more detail involved. And at one point I looked at him and I said, I don't need the tree view, I need the forest view. And he looked at me and he said, you're not in the forest, you're in the savannah.
Oh, Peggy, I can't rave enough about these teachers because they were always so inspirational for me, and I really looked up to the lead teachers and the teachers who helped start SEP. What I love about Peggy is she's so skilled as an instructor. Just watching her is like magic.
And, it wasn't in a negative way. It was just a statement he was making. And so thankfully, when I went home, I had a zebra shirt and found it, and I put on cargo pants, and I came the next day with my outfit, and I said, teach me from where I am.
So it's like you've got this kind of scientist going this way and the teachers going this way, and they're not talking to each other because basically they're both afraid of each other. The scientists were afraid that they were going to say something that was wrong because the teachers knew all of this stuff, and the teachers didn't know anything about the equipment or what they were supposed to do.
That became, an important feature in the partnership piece that we were trying to foster between educators and scientists. And that is that it isn't just a one particular point of view, but those details of the scientist have to be translated in a way that educators and students can understand and be able to use themselves.
That kind of give and take, not me, I'm going to teach you because you don't know and I do. Instead, much more, we have things to teach each other and to share with each other.
I think part of the reason, again, SEP has been so successful, it has been from the very beginning a partnership between teachers and scientists, and Barb Schultz representing, the teaching profession, and Nancy coming out of science.
It's just this excitement in the air that it's addictive. It's addictive, and I was having a great time. And I will just say parenthetically that in the lab you can go for weeks without much to be really excited about because things don't work. You do them over and over, and this was right off the bat. Just, not everything's perfect, but hey, let's try this, let's try that. Oh, here's a good idea. Collaboration and all that. And it was really incredible. So you can hear my enthusiasm around that. Yeah. set out formally to say we should have a lead teacher. Instead, we have like mostly me and Barb trying to teaching in the initial work with the teachers. And it became apparent to me that there was no way I was going to be telling teachers how to teach.
Only somebody who's been in the classroom knows what it's like to deal with 150 people a day, and no time to go to the bathroom, and 5 minutes between classes, and when you have to set up all your equipment and all the rest. And I don't think it would have been anywhere near as successful had it been just a researcher doing it or just a teacher doing it. That partnership was so important.
I think lead teachers are critical because, having that direct classroom experience and being able to speak to what it's like to use some of the kits or curriculum in the classroom right now, having program alumni who have that experience and can kind of serve as the connector or bridge between the staff and the new incoming SEP teachers is so critical.
Man, nothing would happen at SEP without the lead teachers, because they're the ones that could really help develop the curriculum, give lots of feedback on what would work and what wouldn't, and teach us how to teach and help run the sessions.
That was another thing that I really appreciated about SEP was the focus on teachers as professionals and partners. And so the idea of not just having an organization say, hey, teachers, we think you need this, but rather listening to teachers, partnering with teachers, that made a big impact on me, and to be treated as a professional.
We really got a huge break when the Howard Hughes Medical Institute decided to fund science education programs that were hosted at biomedical research institutions. Bruce Alberts, once again, was a key person in making that happen, and he apparently suggested they should talk to me. So this great woman, Kathy Hanna, who was kind of researching all of this for HHMI, she called me and we talked on the phone probably for a couple of hours, because I can go long. A few months later, we got an official document called a request for proposals that just sent goosebumps up and down my arms, because when I read it, what they described sounded exactly like what we were doing. And I was like, oh my God, we should be a shoo-in for this, because it's what we're doing. And wow, when the awards were announced, it was so exciting. And we got one of the largest awards they gave out. The other cool thing was this multi-year money. Money for staff is hard, program operations, and multi-year money, very difficult to get. And so that was huge. As we were teaching the teachers about molecular biology, it just became completely clear that none of the kind of equipment we were using in the research labs was available in classrooms. We got this idea we wanted to get stuff in the classroom. So then the question is how?
That very first year, at the end of the time, they said, well, we'd like to do this with our students, but we don't have any equipment.
And we were really fortunate that Immunex was also being very interested in science education. They had this great woman, Janice Wignall, who was a lab research person, but also doing some sneaky science education on the side. And we had one teacher that ended up also at Immunex for a summer, and she happened to have been mentored by Barb Schultz, so you can already kind of tell the wheels would be turning.
Maybe Immunex would like to fund the purchase of a set of equipment that these teachers could borrow, and we could put together a couple of lessons that they can use this equipment for.
Immunex kicked in it's about $5,000 worth of equipment. Ultimately, it's about a $10,000 kit that we put together that matched what teachers had used in the research labs and what they wanted their kids to get their hands on. And that was the big thing. They wanted their kids to get their hands on this.
I think what you do when you bring kids in and show them this technology is that you're building a belief system, a trust system that this technology actually works. It is doable. These are the tools. And the more the kids see that and talk to their parents and their friends about it, the more support there's going to be for doing this kind of research.
I heard that you could borrow molecular biology equipment and supplies. I was really excited about that. And what I didn't really reckon with was the incredible community experience that came out of that. I was in Maxine Lineal's lab, and my mentor was Dickie Lum. I really enjoyed being in the lab, and I had not had that kind of experience before. So after that, I did 2 summers of research also at Fred Hutch in Dr. Beverly Tork-Storb's lab.
She just slipped right into the lab and was like any other senior graduate student or early postdoc. She wanted to learn. She liked it because it was very technical.
And that really cemented my interest in doing molecular biology with my students, and also helped build my confidence. And I was able to take some of the practices that I observed in the lab and put them into the classes I was teaching. And so I really am grateful to Dr. Bev for having me in her lab for that time, because it really changed me a lot.
I am a retired person now.
I got my start with SEP in 1995, actually. I was a beginning teacher. I'd been in the classroom for 2 years, and it was really a transformative experience for me.
In sessions, Jeannie would be very quiet. And then, either in something written that came, say, the next day in an email, or in some comments she made the next day, you could tell that she had taken all that she heard and like totally rearranged it into this most organized and thoughtful and clear presentation with new concepts and ideas. I mean, just, okay, information in, put in the Genie machine, and overnight comes out all of this amazing, thoughtful things.
Oh, Nancy. Nancy is so wonderful, as you know. And there are a few people in my life who really have been a support and have mentored me, and Nancy is one of those people that I just owe so much to.
SEP is kind of a living, growing thing, and so it's certainly going to evolve, and it's going to evolve in great ways. I am assuming it's going to look different because situations change, the way schools work change, what's supposed to be taught changes.
I think what I've tried to carry forward is her spirit of service to teachers, because that was something that just was part of the DNA of SEP. We exist in order to be able to support teachers who are so incredibly important in making sure that we have the next generation of scientists, but also the next generation of students who understand and support science. In terms of SEP moving forward, I'm not the only one to decide that. Again, rather than telling teachers what we think they should know or do, or what we think SEP should be, I think it has to be done in partnership with teachers. That's why I'm so excited to be directing SEP, is because I know the benefits for teachers are so important and so real.
There's great people leading it, and so I don't need to worry. So far, our story is consistent.